Hey guys, let's make this super cute honey drip lava flow style snow globe. On this cup, I'm using a couple of new techniques that I've only played with before, so it's a little bit of a hot mess, so you guys can just come along with me for the ride. Now, I had tested out what I wanted to try in the little cup, so instead of wasting it, I'm just adding it to the bigger cup so I can mix my glycerin. Now I'm just adding in pure glycerin. I don't have an exact measurement, I kind of just eyeball everything. The first alcohol ink I'm adding is Alcohol Pearls from Ranger. And then just a plain yellow alcohol ink, any brand should work. And then last is a metallic gold alcohol ink. Again, any brand you can find the metallic in should work just fine. Mix that up really well. Now I'm going to add in a couple of gold glitters. These are from the Glitter Guy, but any polyester gold glitter should work just fine. Now I've sped this next part up because it really did take a while. I was pouring super slow to get the super thick glycerin with the thick chunky glitter into the hole. A funnel doesn't work for this, at least not any that I have. The holes are too small and the solution is far too thick. So whenever it started to clog, I'm going to use my blunt tip needle and put it inside of the cup to suck out air and create a vacuum to get the clog unclogged and finish pulling in the liquid. Again, just pouring super slow, unclog, pour slow, unclog. Takes a minute, but it does work. So now I'm going to add in some honeybee and some honeycomb clay slices. I believe I got these off of Etsy maybe a year and a half or so ago, but if you hop on Etsy and just type in honeybee or honeycomb clay slices, it comes up with a couple of different vendors that has them. So just working those down into the cup, and you can add as many or as few as you want. So now all my clay slices are in, I'm going to finish filling with baby oil. When you get as much baby oil in as you can, you're going to use a blunt tip needle and create that vacuum. Stick the needle into the air bubble and suck in extra baby oil into the air bubble, add more baby oil, just create a vacuum, and that way you can get the air bubble out. Now I'm cleaning off the extra baby oil and put in my plug, and that way you can clean it off, flip it over, and see what it looks like. So watching it drip, and this is where the fun starts, because this is where I decided I wanted something more in it. I wanted more of a gold glitter. I wanted to add some fine so that it would mix in a little bit better. So I flipped it back and forth to figure out what was the best way to do that. So I figured best thing to do was to take the plug out and suck out some of the baby oil. I was a little worried adding the fine glitter into the glycerin, just that little bit, and it all mixing in together. So I decided to turn the cup upside down, get all of the glycerin to fall to the bottom, and the cup is plugged right now. But I'm just letting all that glycerin sink to the bottom, and then taking the plug out. That way only the glycerin is dripping out of the cup. So I'm just going to let a lot of that glycerin drip out, and that way I can mix the fine glitter and some more of the pigment into it and get the look that I was really going for. So after I mixed more of the fine glitter into the gold glycerin, then I can just add it back in there. That was just taking out a little bit more of the baby oil. And then just again, that super slow pour to get that gold down in there. Now this is more of the look I was going for. I love the flow, I love the way it looks, I love the extra shimmer added with that fine gold. So I'm just flipping it back and forth, making sure everything is mixed in well with the glycerin, and then I'll finish filling it back with the baby oil. And this is right around when my syringe broke. The little stopper came off. When you're pulling the baby oil out with the syringe, it does get really stiff and kind of cause it to stick on the inside. You would think oil would make it move easier, but it actually doesn't. It makes it really hard. So if I'm ever pulling baby oil out of a cup or trying to put anything in, and you see my hand shaking and struggling with the little syringe, that's why. Got it filled, got the pesky bubble out, put the plug back in, and just cleaned up the bottom. And just to get the extra baby oil off, I will clean the cup a few times with 91% rubbing alcohol, and that's just to make sure that I get all that oil off. And then I'll take the cup and wash it with soap and water and let it completely dry before I put the UV DTF on. So I got it all cleaned up, and I am definitely loving the flow that it has. I love the extra gold and the little clay slices and the way it looks. Now to make the tops for the cup, I am adding some of the fine gold glitter and some of the alcohol inks to UV resin. Mixing that up really well. And then I'm going to take alcohol and spray it lightly into the mold, and that just helps the UV resin spread evenly so you don't get trapped air bubbles in the little places. The edges of the honeycombs, if you're not careful, will get bubbles. So here I'm just putting a light layer of alcohol down and then slowly pouring in the UV resin. After the UV resin is poured into each one, I will then take a tool and just very lightly go around the inside of the mold. Again, just trying to make sure you get all those little air bubbles out. If you have a smaller UV light and this mold won't fit under one, just do half the mold at once. I have 2 of the Resin Rockers Magic Cure lamps, so I can put the large mold in between the 2 and move it back and forth a little bit until I can get a good cure. Once it's cured on the top, you're going to flip it over, put it back in, and cure it on the bottom. Now that they're cured, very gently pull them out, and then I will stick them back under the light just to make sure that it's good and cured. Now I'm going to get my lid ready. You just want to lightly sand the top just to give it a little bit of a rough surface to make sure that UV resin has something good to adhere to. Really, any grit sandpaper will work. Just very, very lightly scuff up the surface, and then you're going to wipe it off with alcohol. And this is where my years of playing Tetris as a kid come in handy. I kind of make too many pieces to start because I never know exactly how they're going to fit on the lid with the idea that I have in my head. So I just take all of the different pieces that I want on the lid and I'll kind of play around with them, see how they'll fit until I get a good arrangement figured out. Each custom ice lid is going to be different. None of them will ever go together completely the same every time. And I think I have the arrangement down, so I'm going to grab some more of that UV resin that I mixed with the alcohol inks and the glitter, give it a little stir, and then I'm going to pour a very, very thin layer of that down onto the lid just to give something for the starting pieces to cure to. Once you get that first layer down, you can start very carefully stacking your pieces, getting them in place exactly where you want those first few. And then I hit it with a strong UV light, not to cure it completely, but basically just to hold it still so that it doesn't fall over as I start to do the rest of the steps. So I'm adding in a little bit of UV resin underneath the handle right there, just so it stays in place and doesn't fall off. And then start adding all of your different ice cubes, kind of squeeze them in, flip them around. Again, it's like playing Tetris. Once you get all your pieces laid, it's going to be time to start adding resin to make sure that it doesn't move. One thing that I absolutely love about the Resin Rockers Magic Cure lamp is on the bottom, it has these little feet that pop out that make the lamp sit up a little bit higher. So if you have something taller, you still have plenty of room to sit it under there. So now I'm using all that resin from All That Glitters Lab to tack all of the ice in place, again hitting it with that UV light just to keep it from moving around on me. In the process, you just add a little bit of resin, hit it with a light, a little bit of resin, hit it with a light. Once everything's tacked down, stick it under your light to give it a good cure. Now I have a couple of different style of little bees, so here I'm just placing them on, trying to see which style I wanted to use for the lid, and I think I like the little resin ones. So I'm just moving those around, figuring out exactly where I want to put them on the lid. But before I secure the bees, I want to do my honey drip. This resin that I'm using is very, very thick. It is perfect for any type of drip. So I'm just mixing a thick amount of fine gold glitter into it, adding a small little bit of the alcohol ink, which of course I didn't put the lid on, so I spilled and made a mess. But adding a little bit of that in and then mix it up really well and clean up my mess. Mess cleaned up, mixing up what I'm using for that drip, adding a little bit more resin, and then you're going to start placing the drip down. Kind of just put it wherever you want it. Once the drip is cured, I'm just using UV resin to add in my little bees. Once you get them in place, add some more resin, make sure that everything is held down really well, and you've got a good layer of resin. While the lid finishes curing, I'm going to go ahead and get the UV DTF put onto the cup. And now that the lid's done, you're going to put the little plastic piece back into the center of it. And your cup is done. I absolutely love how this one came out. I love the glitter, the drip, the lid, the whole thing. It is adorable. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure and hit that subscribe button and stay on the lookout for future videos. Thanks.